As darkness settled in, the mosquitoes came in droves. They bit at Nikolai's neck and face until he finally stopped swatting at them and gave up the fight. Right now, the worst thing about being in the box was the mosquitoes, but he sensed that not being able to stretch his legs was going to be a nightmare. Eventually, he dozed. He didn't sleep well with the mosquitoes everywhere, but he did doze off. Somewhere in the night, he awoke and couldn't get back to sleep. His mouth was dry. He hadn't had water all day, and he wondered when they would bring him some. Had the guards forgotten that he would need water? He was hungry too. Who could say when he'd get a chance to eat again? But it was the circulation in his legs that worried him the most. By now his ankles and feet felt numb with stiffness from his legs being bent up so close to his body. He tried to get the blood flowing in his legs, but it was difficult because the box was so small. There just wasn't room enough to stretch out inside the box. At times like this, he wished that he were a smaller man. If he hadn't felt so miserable, Nikolai might have smiled at such a thought. Being a bit shorter would have allowed him some room to get more exercise in the small box. But there was to be no relief for the numbness that kept coming back to his lower legs. Finally, he began to pray again, as he had done a dozen times since being locked up in the box. It was the only thing that made him feel better. That and the verses of scripture he quoted to bring himself comfort. When the sun finally came up, he felt like it had been the longest night of his life. When Oleg came to get Maxim, Nikolai asked him if he could have some water. Oleg was startled to hear Nikolai's voice from the box. "What are you doing in there?" Oleg asked, peering into the shadows. "Did the warden put you in that box?" "He did." Nikolai felt a bit embarrassed, but he decided he wouldn't try to hide the reason why. "I refused to work yesterday on the Sabbath, so he put me in here to punish me." "I heard that you had been punished, but I didn't know where you were." Oleg shook his head. "I'd better not give you water. They might not like it." "Can you ask one of the guards to bring me some then? I think they may have forgotten me here. No one's been out here except you since they put me in here yesterday." "I'll see what I can do." But the guards never came with any water, or any food for that matter either. All day Nikolai worked to keep his legs moving, and all day he prayed. By now he knew that his time in the box was going to be a long ordeal. He didn't quite know what to expect, because the warden didn't say how long he would have to stay in the box. Every time he heard footsteps, he thought it might be someone coming to bring him food or water, or let him out of the box to stretch. Sometime late that afternoon, a guard did come into the shed to give Nikolai a can of water, but no food. The water felt cool and wet to his parched lips and throat, and yet, thirsty as he was, Nikolai wisely decided to save some water for later. Oleg came in with Maxim later that night, and again Nikolai was glad to have the company of someone to talk to, even if it was just an ox. The night passed in extreme discomfort. The mosquitoes made it almost impossible for him to sleep, and of course the numbing pain in his legs was the worst of all. Nikolai wished that he could get out of the box to use a bathroom, but no one let him out, so the box soon developed an unpleasant odor. Unfortunately, there was nothing Nikolai could do about it. The hours slowly passed, with Oleg and Maxim leaving early the next morning, and then returning again sometime before dark. A guard came with water again, but still no food. Night came once more, And by now, it took all of Nikolai's faith and energy just to pray. Did anyone care about him? Was there no value to his life? And what about God? Did he care that Nikolai was suffering? Nikolai knew the answer to that last question, but he was really feeling sorry for himself by now. God could help relieve his suffering, but he was not choosing to do so right now. There had to be a good reason, of course. Through all these long days filled with pain and loneliness and frustrated faith, Nikolai held to the scripture promises he had always believed in. Satan wanted to make him suffer, but God loved him more than he could possibly imagine. There was a battle going on between good and evil, a war zone in which Nikolai was suffering as much pain and persecution as Satan could muster. Jesus suffered for me with pain that was indescribable. Why should my experience for him be any different? Nikolai tried to bolster his courage with these thoughts, but it was difficult. As with the story of Job, Nikolai knew that some pain and heartache could not be explained except in light of the invisible war going on in the supernatural world. When he thought about it in this way, it seemed to help more than anything else. One thing was for sure: while Nikolai was locked up in the box, he could have his Sabbath rest. It wasn't exactly the place he would have chosen to spend the Lord's Day, but at least he didn't have to work. No matter how Nikolai looked at it, he had to admit it was a blessing in disguise.